I need a husband and you need strong offspring, the towering alien widow proclaimed to the struggling man. The relentless twin sons of Enterr's five beat down mercilessly on Eric's makeshift workshop, a ramshackle structure cobbled together from salvaged spacecraft, parts and scavenged local materials. Sweat dripped steadily from his brow as he tightened the final bolt on the water purifier he'd been painstakingly repairing for the past 3 grueling days. The cursed thing had broken down again, and without it, the fragile human outpost would be in catastrophic trouble. That should do it, he muttered wearily, wiping his oil-stained hands on his already filthy gray jumpsuit. Eric Donovan had been marooned on this war-torn hellhole for nearly 4 agonizing years now. What was supposed to be a straightforward 6-month contract maintaining mining equipment had turned into an indefinite sentence when the devastating Enterr civil war erupted without warning. The spaceport was obliterated in the first brutal week of fighting, and with it went any hope of returning to Earth. He stepped outside, squinting painfully against the harsh, unforgiving light. The human settlement, little more than a desperate collection of prefab shelters and hastily repurposed alien structures, sprawled before him in the dusty valley. About 200 humans remained, mostly engineers, miners, and a handful of diplomats who'd been caught in the merciless crossfire of alien politics. Eric slumped exhaustedly onto a crate outside his workshop and took a long, desperate pull from his canteen. The lukewarm water tasted heavily of minerals and the harsh chemical purifiers they were forced to use, but it was wet. He closed his deep blue eyes for a fleeting moment, allowing himself a rare moment of rest. Human. The voice was deep, resonant, and unmistakably feminine. Eric's eyes snapped open instantly. Standing before him was the tallest woman, no, not woman, female alien he had ever encountered in his life. She towered majestically at least 7 feet tall, her athletic frame powerfully built with defined muscles visible beneath smooth, light blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the sunlight. Her face was strikingly angular with prominent high cheekbones and piercing ice blue eyes that seemed to look straight through him into his very soul. Short white hair framed her face dramatically, cropped close on the sides but with a longer, elegant sweep across the top. She wore form-fitting black armor that accentuated her powerful, imposing physique, adorned with what appeared to be battle trophies, small metal emblems and tokens attached at various strategic points. A ceremonial blade hung menacingly at her hip, its hilt worn smooth from extensive use. Eric scrambled hastily to his feet, heart pounding violently. He recognized her species immediately. Enterr, one of the dominant native species of the planet. But not just any Enterr. The distinctive markings on her armor identified her as a member of the formidable northern clans, the more aggressive and militant faction in the Civil War. "Can I help you?" he managed, his hand instinctively reaching for the heavy wrench on his workbench. The Enterr woman's eyes followed his defensive movement precisely, and her mouth curved into what might have been amusement. "I am Tarja, widow of Warlord Krendak of the Northern Reaches." Her voice carried the unmistakable authoritative tone of someone accustomed to absolute command. "You are the human called Eric, the one who fixes machines." It wasn't a question. Eric nodded cautiously, wondering apprehensively how she knew his name and what a high-ranking Enterr warrior wanted with him. She took a deliberate step closer, and Eric had to resist the powerful urge to back away. Her presence was utterly overwhelming, not just her imposing size, but the sheer force of personality that radiated from her like heat. "I have observed you carefully for some time," she continued matter-of-factly. "You are exceptionally strong for a human, remarkably resourceful, demonstrably intelligent." "Thank you," Eric replied uncertainly, confusion evident in his voice. Tarja's expression remained stern as she leaned down purposefully, bringing her face closer to his. Her scent was distinctly alien but not unpleasant, something reminiscent of cinnamon and ozone. "I need a husband," she stated bluntly, "and you need strong offspring." Eric blinked repeatedly, certain he had catastrophically misheard. What?" "My position requires that I take a new mate," she explained as if discussing the weather. "My scouts have observed your struggling human settlement extensively. You desperately struggle for resources, protection, purpose." She straightened to her full, imposing height. "I can provide all these things generously." Eric's mind raced frantically. Was this some kind of elaborate joke? A veiled threat? Some bizarre cultural misunderstanding? Look, I genuinely appreciate the offer, he said carefully, choosing his words with extreme caution. But humans and Enterrans don't exactly. I mean, we're not even the same species. Our genetic structures are sufficiently compatible, Taria replied without hesitation. This has been conclusively confirmed by our scientists. The children would be remarkably strong. Eric ran a trembling hand through his short dark hair, trying desperately to process the surreal situation. This is incredibly sudden. I don't even know you. You will learn, she replied simply as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. I will return tomorrow for your answer. She turned decisively to leave, then paused dramatically. Consider carefully, human. Such extraordinary opportunities come rarely in times of devastating war. As she strode away confidently, her powerful form silhouetted dramatically against the setting suns, Eric sank back onto his crate, stunned into complete silence. Of all the bizarre things that had happened to him on this alien world, this was by far the strangest and most bewildering. And yet, as he watched her disappear over the distant ridge, he couldn't deny the small spark of genuine interest that had ignited unexpectedly within him. Sleep eluded Eric mercilessly that night. He tossed and turned restlessly on his narrow, uncomfortable cot, Taria's audacious proposition echoing relentlessly in his mind. By dawn, he'd made a decisive decision. He needed substantially more information before giving her an answer. The human settlement was already bustling energetically when Eric made his way determinedly to the trading post, a ramshackle building that served as both chaotic marketplace and unofficial intelligence hub. If anyone possessed knowledge about Taria and her mysterious clan, it would be Mika, the post's weathered proprietor. Well, look what the dust storm dragged in, Mika called cheerfully as Eric entered. The older man's deeply weathered face broke into a knowing grin. Heard you had an extraordinarily interesting visitor yesterday. Eric stopped short, startled. News travels fast. 7-foot blue warrior woman visiting a human? That's the kind of scandalous gossip that spreads faster than a reactor leak. Mika gestured invitingly to a worn stool. Sit, coffee? Please. Eric accepted the chipped mug of bitter liquid gratefully. I need information about her. Taria, widow of Warlord Krendak, Mika finished, lowering his voice conspiratorially. Yeah, I know exactly who she is. Everyone does. She asked me to marry her, Eric said bluntly. Mika's coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. Holy, my thoughts exactly. The older man set down his mug deliberately and leaned forward intently. This isn't just about getting you into her bed, son. Enterr politics are extraordinarily complicated, especially in the volatile northern clans. I figured as much, Eric said grimly. What's her angle? Krendak died 6 months ago in brutal battle. No children. By their rigid laws, Taria inherited his position and holdings, but she desperately needs a mate to solidify her precarious claim. Mika scratched his grizzled beard thoughtfully. Thing is, if she takes another powerful Enterran warrior, it creates a dangerous power imbalance. The new husband would have far too much political influence. So she needs an outsider, Eric concluded astutely. Someone who can't threaten the clan hierarchy. Smart boy. Mika paused meaningfully. There's more, though. Word is there's a treacherous faction in her clan that wants her eliminated, led by Krendak's brother Vrok. Nasty piece of work. Eric digested this troubling information carefully. So I'd be walking into a political minefield. With benefits, Mika added with a knowing, roguish smile. Taria's territory includes the richest agricultural land on the entire continent, access to fresh food, clean water, proper shelter, luxuries we haven't seen in years. And all I have to do is be her breeding partner. The words felt disturbingly strange in Eric's mouth. Don't sell yourself short, said a confident, feminine voice from the doorway. Both men turned, simultaneously to see Lena, one of the settlement's few remaining scientists. She approached their table with purposeful, measured strides. Enterrans don't just choose mates for political convenience, she explained authoritatively, sitting down uninvited. They're intensely physical beings. If Taria chose you specifically, there's definitely genuine attraction involved. Eric felt uncomfortable heat rise to his face. You're saying she actually wants me physically? Enterran females are powerfully drawn to competence and resilience, Lena said matter-of-factly. They find our adaptability absolutely fascinating. And you, my friend, have survived on this hellhole for 4 years while maintaining a vital role in the community. Plus, Mika added with a teasing wink, you're not bad looking for a grease monkey. Eric rolled his eyes but couldn't suppress a small smile. So what do I do? That depends, Lena said seriously. Are you attracted to her? The direct question caught Eric completely off guard. He hadn't allowed himself to consider that aspect yet. But now, thinking about Taria's commanding presence, her piercing ice blue eyes, the authoritative way she carried herself, he couldn't deny a primal pull toward her. I might be, he admitted cautiously. Different can be very good, Lena said with a knowing smile. Their physiology is remarkably compatible with ours. Some differences, obviously, but nothing that would prevent mutual satisfaction. Eric's collar suddenly felt unbearably tight. You seem to know a lot about this, Lena shrugged casually. I dated an Enterr male before the war. Trust me, the experience is thoroughly memorable. Before Eric could process that startling revelation, the trading post door swung open abruptly. A tense hush fell instantly over the room as Taria ducked through the entrance, her imposing frame filling the doorway completely. Her eyes found Eric immediately with laser precision. The other humans scattered hastily, leaving a clear path between them. You seek information about me, she stated, approaching his table with measured steps. It wasn't a question. I needed to understand what I'd be getting into, Eric replied honestly, standing to face her directly. Something like approval flickered briefly in her penetrating eyes. Wise. A maid who acts without knowledge is utterly useless. She stepped closer, close enough that Eric could feel the intense heat radiating from her powerful body. Have you learned what you wish to know? Some, he admitted carefully. But I still have questions. Ask them now. Why me specifically? There are other humans here. Taria's gaze traveled slowly, deliberately down his body, then back up to meet his eyes directly. The intensity of her appraising look sent an involuntary shiver down his spine that wasn't entirely unpleasant. You build, you repair, you create brilliantly from nothing. Her voice lowered seductively. These are traits I desire in the father of my children. The directness of her statement, combined with her unwavering stare, made Eric's heart race frantically. There was no artifice in her manner, no coyness, just raw, honest desire. And if I say yes? He asked, his voice rougher than he intended. Then you will come to my territory. You will be my consort. We will produce offspring. A hint of something softer entered her expression, and perhaps in time we will find more between us than duty. Yes, Eric said, the word hanging between them in the suddenly silent trading post. I accept your proposal. A murmur rippled through the onlooking humans. Taria's expression remained stoic, but Eric caught a flicker of satisfaction in her ice blue eyes. You have chosen wisely, she stated, her deep voice carrying authoritatively across the room. Gather your essential belongings. We depart midday. With that, she turned and strode out confidently, leaving Eric to face the wide-eyed stares of his fellow humans. Well, Mika said, breaking the stunned silence. You've got balls. I'll give you that. 3 tense hours later, Eric stood at the settlement's edge with a single weathered pack containing his tools, a few precious personal items, and some spare clothes. The human community's leaders had given their cautious blessing, recognizing the potential benefits of having one of their own embedded in Taria's clan, though not without grave warnings about the dangers he faced. Taria arrived precisely at midday, accompanied by 4 imposing Enterr warriors mounted on massive 6-legged beasts that resembled a terrifying cross between horses and rhinoceros. Without ceremony, she extended her powerful hand, pulling Eric up effortlessly behind her on her mount. Hold tight, she commanded firmly. The journey is not gentle. Eric wrapped his arms securely around her waist, immediately aware of the firm, defined muscles beneath her armor. Her body radiated intense heat like a furnace, a trait of Enterr physiology he hadn't expected. The closeness was both intimidating and strangely exhilarating. They rode for exhausting hours through rugged, treacherous terrain, eventually cresting a ridge that revealed a sprawling compound nestled in a lush, fertile valley. Unlike the barren wastelands surrounding the human settlement, Taria's territory boasted flowing water, carefully cultivated fields, and impressive structures built from local stone and metal rather than scavenged materials. "Your new home," Tarja stated, gesturing expansively to the compound. As they approached, Eric noticed Enterr stopping their activities to watch intently. Their expressions ranged from curious to openly hostile. "They don't seem thrilled about my arrival," he observed carefully. "They will accept you when you prove your worth," Tarja replied matter-of-factly. "Words mean nothing to my people. Actions are what matter." The central building was an imposing structure of stone and metal, clearly designed for both defense and status. Tarja led Eric through long corridors adorned with weapons and battle trophies until they reached what appeared to be private quarters. "These rooms are yours," she said, opening a door to reveal a spacious chamber with furnishings that blended Enterr aesthetics with surprising comfort. "Mine adjoin them. You will join me for the evening meal where you will be formally presented to the clan council." Eric set down his pack. "And after that?" Tarja's gaze intensified dramatically. "After that, we begin what you humans call marriage." The directness of her statement sent heat rushing through Eric's body. There was no mistaking her meaning. "I should warn you," he said, finding his voice. "Human mating customs are probably different from what you're used to." A rare smile curved Tarja's lips. "I have studied your species extensively. Your techniques interest me greatly." Before Eric could respond to that provocative statement, she continued, "Rest now. Bathe if you wish. The council will test you tonight and you must be alert." After she left, Eric explored his new quarters, discovering a bathing chamber with actual running water, a luxury he hadn't experienced in years. He stripped off his dusty clothes and stepped into the stone basin, sighing with relief as warm water washed over him. The evening meal proved to be the trial Tarja had warned about. In a hall filled with Enterr warriors and stern clan officials, Eric was subjected to intense scrutiny and barely veiled challenges. He faced their probing questions directly, refusing to show intimidation despite being the only human in a room full of beings who could snap him in half. When asked about his skills, he spoke confidently of his engineering abilities. When questioned about his intentions toward Tarja, he answered honestly that while their arrangement began as mutual benefit, he respected her deeply and hoped to build something meaningful. Throughout the meal, he felt Tarja's eyes on him constantly. Each time he met her gaze, the intensity there made his pulse quicken. After the council members departed, Tarja led Eric back to their quarters in heavy silence. The tension between them had built throughout the evening, a palpable force that made the air seem charged with electricity. Inside her chambers, more spacious and elaborately decorated than his, she finally turned to face him. Without ceremony, she began removing her armor piece by piece. "You handled yourself well," she said, setting aside her breastplate. "Many expected you to cower." "Not really my style," Eric replied, trying to keep his voice steady as more of her blue skin was revealed with each piece of discarded armor. "No," she agreed, stepping closer. "It is not." She paused, her eyes locking with his. "That is why I chose you." She stood before him now in a simple undergarment that left little to the imagination. The powerful muscles of her arms and legs rippled as she moved, yet there was an undeniable femininity to her form that drew Eric's eye. "In my culture," she said, reaching out to touch his face, "a union must be sealed physically to be recognized." Eric swallowed hard. "In mine too, generally speaking." Her fingers traced his jawline with surprising gentleness. "Your skin is different than ours, softer." Her touch moved to his lips. "Fascinating." Eric's restraint broke. He reached up, pulling her down to his level, and kissed her deeply. For a moment she stiffened in surprise, then responded with an intensity that took his breath away. What followed was a discovery of differences and surprising similarities. Where Eric expected alienness, he often found common ground. Where he anticipated familiarity, he discovered thrilling differences. Throughout it all, Tarja's strength matched his own passion, neither dominating nor submitting, but meeting as equals in a dance as old as life itself. Later, as they lay together in the darkness, Tarja's arm draped possessively across his chest. Eric realized that whatever political calculations had brought them together, something far more primal and honest now bound them to each other. 2 weeks later, Eric woke to the unfamiliar sensation of soft bedding and warm sunlight streaming through high windows. For a fleeting moment, he forgot where he was, until he felt the weight of Taria's muscular arm across his chest. She slept soundly beside him, her usually stern features softened peacefully in repose. 2 weeks had passed since his arrival at the compound, and each day had brought new challenges and revelations. The clan's initial skepticism toward him had begun to thaw gradually as he proved his worth. Though pockets of resistance stubbornly remained, he carefully slipped from beneath Taria's arm, admiring her powerful form as she stirred but didn't wake. Their nights together had been a profound revelation, passionate, intense, and surprisingly tender at times. What had begun as a practical arrangement was evolving into something neither had anticipated. Eric dressed quietly and made his way to what had become his workshop within the compound. The Enterrans had given him space to work, though they had initially been dubious about what a human engineer could offer their technologically advanced society. Those doubts had evaporated when Eric redesigned their water filtration system, increasing efficiency by an impressive 30%. Now he was tackling a more ambitious project, upgrading the compound's defensive perimeter. He was deep in concentration, sketching intricate designs for sensor arrays that would detect approaching threats. When Ka, Taria's most trusted warrior, entered. "The human works while others sleep," the massive Enterran observed, his deep voice resonating in the workshop. "Old habits," Eric replied without looking up. He'd learned that showing deference to Enterran warriors only earned their contempt. "What can I do for you, Ka?" The perimeter alarm on the eastern wall failed again last night. Eric frowned deeply. "That's the third time this week. I checked those circuits myself yesterday." "Perhaps your human technology is not compatible with ours," Ka suggested, though without the malice such comments had carried weeks ago. "Or perhaps someone doesn't want them to work." Eric muttered darkly, setting down his tools. "I'll check it again." As they walked to the eastern wall, Eric noticed Ka studying him with unusual intensity. "You have changed, Taria," the warrior finally said. Eric glanced at him, unsure if this was criticism or observation. "How so?" "She smiles now, sometimes." Ka's face remained impassive. "And she speaks of new ways, different approaches to old problems." "Is that bad?" "It is unexpected." Ka stopped walking. "There is something else. The clan healer wishes to speak with both of you urgently. She sent me to find you after meeting with Taria this morning." A knot formed in Eric's stomach. "Is Taria all right?" "She is well. More than well, according to the healer." A rare smile cracked Ka's stony face. "But it is not my news to share." They reached the eastern wall where Eric discovered the alarm. System had indeed been deliberately tampered with, wires carefully cut and reconnected to bypass the sensors. This was deliberate sabotage, not equipment failure, Eric said, showing Ka the evidence. "Someone doesn't want us to know if we have visitors from this direction." "Any idea who might want to leave us vulnerable?" Ka's expression darkened ominously. "Vrock has supporters within our walls. This would be their treacherous work." Eric repaired the system, adding a clever modification that would alert him personally if anyone tampered with it again. As they returned to the central compound, they encountered a group of younger Enterrans engaged in combat training. "Human," called one of them, a warrior named Dren who had been particularly vocal in his disdain for Eric. "Show us how your kind fights. Or do you only battle with wires and tools?" The challenge hung in the air. Eric knew declining would be seen as weakness, but accepting meant facing an opponent with superior strength and reach. "I'll pass today," Eric replied evenly. "I have more important matters to attend to." "Like warming our leader's bed," Dren sneered. "That seems to be your only true skill." Ka stepped forward, but Eric placed a hand on the warrior's arm, a gesture that silenced the onlookers with its familiarity. "You know," Eric said conversationally, "on Earth we have a saying, work smarter, not harder." He approached a nearby weapons rack and selected a training staff. "For instance, why exhaust yourself trying to overpower an opponent when you can use their own strength against them?" He tossed the staff to Dren, who caught it reflexively. "Attack me!" The young Enterran hesitated, then lunged forward with a powerful thrust. Eric sidestepped, caught the staff with one hand and used Dren's momentum to pull him off balance. A quick sweep of Eric's leg and the warrior crashed to the ground. "That's how humans fight," Eric said, offering Dren a hand up. "We adapt." To his surprise, Dren accepted his help and rose, looking at Eric with newfound respect. "You must teach me this technique. Tomorrow," Eric promised. "For now, I need to find Tarja." He found her in their quarters, standing at the window overlooking the compound. She turned as he entered, and Eric was struck by a subtle change in her demeanor, a softness around her eyes, a new awareness in the way her hand rested protectively over her abdomen. "The healer spoke to you," he said. Understanding immediately, Tarja nodded. "Our union has borne fruit sooner than expected. The healer says I carry a child. Our child." Eric crossed the room in 3 strides and took her hands in his. "How is this possible so quickly?" "I thought human and Enterr biology is more compatible than our scientists believed," she explained. "The healer says the child is strong, developing rapidly." A rare, genuine smile transformed her face. "You have fulfilled your part of our arrangement with impressive efficiency." Eric laughed, then sobered. "This changes things. Frock will see our child as a direct threat to his claim." "Yes," Tarja agreed, "which is why we must strengthen our position before the news spreads." She squeezed his hands. "The clan council meets tomorrow. I want you there, not as my consort but as my equal." "Your equal?" Eric raised an eyebrow. "That's not how Enterr tradition works, is it?" "Perhaps it is time for new traditions," Tarja said. "Your human ways have shown me alternatives to our rigid customs. Together we can lead the clan into a future stronger than our past." As she spoke, Eric realized how much had changed between them in such a short time. What had begun as a transaction, "I need a husband, and you need strong offspring," had evolved into a partnership neither had anticipated. And now, with a child on the way and enemies moving against them, that partnership would face its greatest test. The council chamber. The clan council chamber was an imposing circular room carved from the native stone of Enterr's 5. Its high ceiling supported by massive columns inscribed with the ancient history of Tarja's people. 12 seats arranged in a semicircle faced the warlord's throne where Tarja now sat, her posture regal despite the palpable tension that filled the air. Eric stood at her right hand, dressed in a modified version of Enterr formal attire that accommodated his smaller frame while still marking him as a person of importance. The council members' expressions ranged from curiosity to barely concealed hostility as they took their places. "This council is called to order," announced Merrick, the eldest member and traditional keeper of clan law. "Tarja, widow of Krendak and leader of the Northern Reach, has summoned us to address matters of succession and security." Tarja rose, her commanding presence drawing all eyes. "Counselors, I bring news that will shape our clan's future. I carry a child, the heir to Krendak's legacy and mine." Murmurs erupted around the chamber. Eric watched the council members carefully, noting who seemed pleased by the announcement and who did not. Yarn, Tarja's chief advisor, sat forward with particular interest, his eyes darting between Tarja and Eric. "A child so soon?" Merrick asked, his tone neutral but his gaze skeptical. "With the human?" "Yes," Tarja confirmed without hesitation. "Our biologies have proven more compatible than expected. The clan healer has confirmed the child is strong and healthy." "This is unprecedented," said Lyra, one of the few female council members, a half-human heir to the Northern Reach. "What powers will such a child possess? What weaknesses?" "Strength comes in many forms," Eric interjected, earning surprised looks from several counselors unaccustomed to hearing a consort speak during formal proceedings. "On Earth we call it hybrid vigor. The offspring of different genetic lines often exhibit the best traits of both." Yarn's lips curled in a barely perceptible smile. "The human speaks of breeding as if discussing livestock." "How practical." "I speak of our child," Eric corrected firmly, "who will have the advantage of 2 worlds' knowledge and strengths." Before Yarn could respond, alarms blared throughout the compound. The council members rose in confusion as Cobb burst into the chamber. "We are under attack," he shouted. "The Eastern Clan has breached the outer perimeter." Chaos erupted as counselors reached for weapons and guards rushed to defensive positions. Tarja immediately took command, issuing orders with the practiced efficiency of a born leader. "Eric," she called, "activate your new defense systems. Ka, organize the warriors at the main gate. Yarn, get the non-combatants to the shelters." As the council chamber emptied, Eric caught a glimpse of Yarn slipping away in a direction opposite the shelters. Something about the advisor's calm demeanor amid the panic triggered Eric's suspicions. "Tarja," he said quickly, "I don't trust Yarn. The timing of this attack is too convenient. She nodded, having learned to trust his intuition. Go to the control room. I will handle the defense at the gate. Be careful, Eric urged, placing a hand on her abdomen. Both of you. Her eyes softened momentarily as she covered his hand with hers. A warrior is always careful. Go. Eric raced to the control room, a chamber he had modified extensively over the past weeks to house the central hub of his new defense network. As he entered, he spotted a figure hunched over the main console, Yarn, methodically disabling the security protocols. I thought you might show up, the advisor said without turning around. Humans are so predictably heroic. And traitors are predictably cowardly, Eric replied, edging closer. Working with Vrock, or is it the Eastern clan directly? Yarn straightened, revealing a weapon in his hand. Both, actually. Vrock promised me a position of power once he takes control, and the Easterners are eager to eliminate Tarja while she's vulnerable. Vulnerable? Eric laughed. You've clearly never seen her fight. Perhaps not, Yarn conceded. But even she cannot fight while protecting a child in her womb. Your child has made her weak, human. That's where you're wrong, Eric said, inching toward a tool he'd left on a nearby workbench. It's made her stronger, given her something more to fight for. Yarn raised his weapon. Enough talk. Step away from the console. In one fluid motion, Eric grabbed the tool, a heavy wrench, and hurled it at Yarn's head. The advisor ducked, but the distraction gave Eric enough time to lunge forward, tackling him to the ground. The weapon skittered across the floor as they grappled. Despite his smaller size, Eric's combat training with Kay over the past weeks had taught him to use an Enterran's greater weight against them. He twisted, using Yarn's momentum to flip him over, then delivered a sharp blow to the nerve cluster at the base of the alien's neck. A vulnerability Ka had specifically pointed out. Yarn went limp, temporarily paralyzed. Eric quickly bound him with cable ties, then turned to the console. The damage was extensive but not irreparable. His fingers flew over the controls, bypassing damaged systems and rerouting power to the defensive grid. Outside, the sounds of battle intensified. Tarja, can you hear me? Eric activated the compound's communication system. I hear you, came her strained reply, the background filled with the clash of weapons and shouts of combat. Yarn sabotaged the defenses. He's working with Vrock and the Eastern clan. I've got him secured, and I'm bringing the systems back online now. Hurry, she urged. We are outnumbered. Eric's modifications to the compound's defenses included automated turrets and a shield generator salvaged from a crashed spacecraft. As he brought each system online, the tide of battle began to turn. The Eastern clan warriors, expecting easy entry through the sabotaged defenses, instead found themselves facing unexpected resistance. When the last system came online, Eric raced to join the battle, grabbing a weapon from the security locker. He arrived at the main gate to find Tarja in the thick of combat, her movements a blur of lethal precision despite the child she carried. She fought with the ferocity of a mother, protecting not just her clan, but the future growing within her. Eric joined Kay's squad, using his smaller size and quickness to dart between larger combatants, disabling rather than killing when possible. His Earth combat training, so different from the Enterran's direct approach, confused the enemy warriors who had never fought a human before. As the battle raged, a massive figure pushed through the Eastern clan forces. Vrock, Krendak's brother, his armor adorned with trophies from countless kills. He headed straight for Tarja, hatred burning in his eyes. The widow and her human pet, he snarled.
Today I reclaim what should have been mine.
Eric locked eyes with Tarja across the battlefield. In that moment of silent communication, a plan formed between them, a perfect synthesis of human strategy and Enterran's strength. The challenged Tarja, widow of Krendak. Vrock's voice boomed across the battlefield. I challenge you for leadership of the Northern Reach, as is my right by blood. The fighting around them slowed as warriors from both sides recognized the formal challenge. According to ancient Enterran tradition, clan leadership could be contested through single combat, a practice rarely invoked but deeply respected. Tarja straightened, her weapon held ready. I accept your challenge, Vrock. Eric pushed through the crowd toward her. Tarja, you can't. I must, she cut him off, her voice low. To refuse would show weakness. Vrock's laugh was cruel. The widow carries a half-breed whelp. She is in no condition to fight for leadership. His gaze shifted to Eric with contempt. Unless her human pet wishes to die in her place? A murmur rippled through the gathered warriors. Eric felt dozens of eyes turned toward him, measuring, judging. Merrick stepped forward from the council members who had joined the battle. There is precedent, the elder stated. The ancient laws allow a mate to stand as champion when the challenged is with child. A human? Vrock spat. This mockery of our traditions only proves my point. The widow has weakened our clan with foreign influence. Eric met Taria's eyes. In the weeks they'd been together, he'd learned to read her expressions, the subtle shifts that others missed. Now he saw concern, pride, and something deeper that made his heart race. I'll stand for you, he said quietly. Eric, he will kill you, she replied, her voice barely audible. Vrock has never lost a challenge. Neither have I. Eric smiled. Different kinds of battles, but the principle's the same. Trust me. After a moment of hesitation, Taria nodded and turned to Merrick. I invoke the right of champion. My mate will fight in my stead. Vrock's expression shifted from contempt to predatory anticipation. The human accepts? Excellent. When I crush his skull, I will take both your territory and your life. Widow, state the terms, Merrick commanded, his voice carrying the weight of tradition. To first blood would be too easy, Vrock sneered. The human would fall in seconds. To submission or incapacitation? Agreed, Eric said before Taria could object. Merrick raised his hands. The challenge is set. Prepare the combat circle. Warriors from both clans quickly formed a large ring, weapons pointed outward to prevent interference. Eric removed his outer garments, stripping down to a light undershirt and pants that would allow maximum mobility. Across the circle, Vrock did the same, revealing a torso covered in battle scars and ritual markings. Ka approached, offering Eric a ceremonial blade. You will need this. No, Eric replied, surprising the warrior. I'll fight my way. He is twice your size and strength, Ka warned. Exactly, Eric grinned. That's his weakness, not mine. As Eric stepped into the circle, Taria caught his arm. The public display of affection shocked the onlookers. Antaran warriors traditionally showed no emotion before battle. Remember what I taught you about our anatomy, she said urgently. And remember what you taught me about human ingenuity, Eric replied. Her hand briefly touched her abdomen. We are both fighting with you. The intensity in her ice-blue eyes sent a surge of determination through Eric. This was no longer about survival or political maneuvering. This was about protecting his new family and the future they could build together. Merrick called them to the center of the circle. The challenge will commence on my signal. May the strongest lead. Vrock towered over Eric, nearly 8 feet of muscle and aggression. Any last words, human? Just one piece of advice, Eric replied calmly. Don't underestimate what you don't understand. Merrick dropped his hand and Vrock lunged immediately, a roar tearing from his throat as he attempted to end the fight with a single crushing blow. Eric sidestepped with the fluid grace he'd developed during weeks of training with Kai, allowing the massive Antaran's momentum to carry him past. The crowd murmured in surprise. They had expected the human to be immediately overwhelmed. Vrock recovered quickly, turning with unexpected speed for his size. Lucky dodge, he snarled, circling more cautiously now. Not luck, Eric replied, maintaining his distance. Physics. This time, when Vrock attacked, Eric didn't dodge completely. Instead, he redirected the force of the blow using techniques he'd learned from Earth martial arts combined with Ka's lessons on Antaran fighting styles. The result sent Vrock stumbling, off balance but unhurt. For several intense minutes, they continued this dance, Vrock attacking with increasing frustration while Eric evaded and redirected, never striking directly but gradually wearing down his larger opponent. The watching warriors began to understand the human's strategy. He couldn't match Vrock's strength, so he was using it against him. Fight me properly, coward, Vrock bellowed after another failed assault left him panting. I am, Eric replied calmly, just not by your rules. Fury overtook Vrock's tactical sense. He charged recklessly, arms outstretched to grab the human. Eric waited until the last possible moment before dropping to the ground and rolling between Vrock's legs. As he came up behind the Antaran, he struck precisely at the nerve cluster at the base of the spine, the same point he'd used to incapacitate Yarn. Vrock's legs buckled, but his momentum carried him forward into the edge of the circle, where he collided with several warriors. In the confusion, something clattered to the ground. A small device that Eric immediately recognized as a remote detonator. "Check the compound," Eric shouted. "He's planted explosives." Ka and several warriors rushed to search as Vrock struggled to regain his footing, the temporary paralysis already wearing off. His face contorted with hatred as he realized his backup plan had been discovered. "You think you've won?" he snarled at Eric. "Even if you defeat me, the clan will never truly accept a human or his half-breed offspring." Eric circled warily. "That's where you're wrong, Vrock. They've already started to. Not because I demanded it, but because I earned it. One day at a time, one challenge at a time." Vrock lunged again, but his movements were slower now, his legendary stamina finally flagging. Eric met this attack differently, stepping into Vrock's reach rather than away from it. Using the Enterran's own momentum, he executed a perfect throw that sent Vrock crashing to the ground with Eric on top, his forearm pressed against Vrock's windpipe. "Yield," Eric commanded. "Never," Vrock gasped, struggling against the hold. Eric increased the pressure just enough to demonstrate his control without causing permanent damage. "I don't want to kill you, Vrock. That's the difference between us. I'm fighting for something, not against someone." For a moment, it seemed Vrock might continue resisting. Then, with a growl of defeat, he slapped his hand against the ground, the Enterran signal of submission. The circle erupted in shouts as Eric released his hold and stood. Taria pushed through the warriors, her face alight with fierce pride. Without hesitation, she pulled Eric into an embrace that lifted him off his feet, then kissed him deeply before the entire clan. Another break with tradition that left the onlooker stunned. "My champion," she said as she set him down, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent gathering. "My mate," Merrick stepped forward. "The challenge is decided. Eric of Earth has stood as champion for Taria, leader of the Northern Reach, and prevailed. By our most ancient laws, her position is secured and her chosen mate recognized." As the clan warriors knelt in formal acknowledgement, Ka returned with several others. "We found explosive devices throughout the compound," he reported. "All have been disabled." Taria's expression hardened as she turned to Vrock, who was being held by two warriors. "Assassination and sabotage. You dishonor our clan and our ancestors." "What will you do with him?" Eric asked quietly. Taria considered for a moment. "Traditional punishment would be execution." She looked at Eric. "But perhaps there is wisdom in your human ways. What would your people do?" "Exile," Eric suggested. "Let him live with his failure, far from the clan and its resources." Taria nodded slowly. "So be it. Vrock is banished from the Northern Reach, stripped of rank and name. If he returns, his life is forfeit." As Vrock was led away, the Eastern Clan warriors, seeing their ally defeated and their surprise attack thwarted, began a strategic retreat. The battle was over, at least for now. That night, as Eric and Taria lay together in their chambers, her hand traced the bruises forming on his body from the combat. "You fought magnificently today," she murmured. "Not as an Enterran would fight, but as only a human could." "I had something worth fighting for," Eric replied, his hand coming to rest on the slight swell of her abdomen where their child grew. "Something I never expected to find on this planet." Taria's usually stern features softened in the dim light. "When I first came to your settlement and said I need a husband and you need strong offspring, I spoke only of practical matters." Her voice lowered to a whisper. "I did not expect this." This? Eric prompted, though he knew what she meant. "This feeling," she admitted. "This connection," Eric smiled, pulling her closer. "On Earth we have a word for it." "Tell me," she demanded softly. "Love," he said simply. "We call it love." 6 months later, 6 months after Vrock's defeat, the Northern Reach compound bustled with unusual activity. Warriors and clan members hurried through the corridors, carrying ceremonial items and speaking in excited tones. In the central courtyard, a delegation from the human settlement was arriving, led by Mika and Lena, bearing gifts and supplies. Inside the clan leader's quarters, Eric paced nervously outside the birthing chamber. Antaran tradition forbade males from the birthing process until the child's first cry had been heard, a custom Eric had reluctantly agreed to honor despite his human instinct to be at Taria's side. Ka watched his friend's anxious movements with amusement. "You humans are strange creatures. Our males typically spend birthing time in combat practice to honor the strength needed to bring forth life. Different ways of showing concern, Eric replied, pausing his pacing. On Earth, fathers often stay with the mother during childbirth. Truly? Ka looked genuinely shocked. And this helps the birthing? It's about support, not practical assistance, Eric explained. Being there for someone you love during a challenging time. Ka considered this. Your human ways still surprise me, yet I cannot deny their effectiveness. He gestured around them. Look at what you have accomplished in half a cycle. Our defenses are stronger, our harvest more bountiful, and our clan more united than in living memory. Eric smiled, acknowledging the compliment. The month since his victory over Vrak had been transformative for the clan. His engineering innovations had improved everything from irrigation systems to defensive capabilities, while Taria's leadership had grown more inclusive, incorporating human concepts of cooperation alongside traditional Enterr strength. Their relationship had deepened as well. What began as a pragmatic arrangement had blossomed into genuine partnership. Their nights together had become not just physical satisfaction, but a communion of souls, moments of vulnerability and tenderness that neither had expected to find in the other. A sudden, powerful cry echoed from the birthing chamber, not Taria's voice, but the unmistakable wail of a newborn. Eric froze, his heart pounding as the door swung open. The clan healer emerged, her usually stern face split with a rare smile. Enter, human. Meet your son. Eric rushed inside to find Taria propped up on a ceremonial birthing couch, looking exhausted but triumphant. In her arms was a small bundle with a shock of dark hair visible at one end. Eric, she said softly as he approached. Come meet your son. He knelt beside her, overwhelmed as she turned the bundle toward him. The child's skin was a pale blue, lighter than Taria's but definitely Enterr in hue. His features were a perfect blend of both parents, Taria's high cheekbones and Eric's nose, tiny pointed ears that split the difference between human roundness and Enterr elongation. But most striking were his eyes, deep blue like Eric's, but with the iridescent quality of Taria's people. He's perfect, Eric whispered, gently touching the child's cheek. Strong, Taria agreed, her voice filled with pride. The healer says his hybrid nature gives him advantages. His heart is more efficient than either of our species, and his muscle density suggests he will have both Enterr strength and human dexterity. Eric laughed softly, already analyzing his tactical advantages. He's barely an hour old. He is the future, Taria replied seriously. The first of his kind, a bridge between our worlds. What shall we name him? In my culture, the father names sons, she said, but perhaps we should honor both traditions. Eric thought for a moment, carefully taking the child as Taria offered him. On Earth, children often carry family names. My father was David. Taria considered this. A strong name, but not Enterr enough for the clan to accept. Her brow furrowed in thought. What of Krento? It honors my late husband's lineage while creating something new. Krento David. Eric tested the name, looking down at his son. A name from both worlds for a child of both worlds. The baby opened his eyes fully then, seeming to focus on his father with an awareness that startled Eric. In that moment, he felt the profound weight of what they had created. Not just a child, but a new beginning. Later that day, in accordance with Enterr tradition, Taria and Eric presented Krento to the clan in a formal ceremony. The Great Hall was filled not only with clan members but also with humans from the settlement, marking the first time such integration had occurred. Merrick, as eldest council member, performed the traditional blessing, but with modifications that acknowledged the child's unique heritage. Today we welcome Krento David, son of Taria and Eric, heir to the Northern Reach and ambassador of two worlds. As Merrick held the child up for all to see, a resounding cheer rose from both Enterr and humans alike. Eric stood beside Taria, his hand clasped firmly in hers, marveling at how far they had come from that first meeting outside his workshop. I told you that you needed strong offspring, Taria murmured to him, a rare teasing note in her voice. And I needed a husband, Eric completed, smiling up at her. Seems we were both right. The celebration continued long into the night with unprecedented mingling between humans and Enterr. Eric watched as Mika taught a group of warriors a traditional earth dance, while Lena engaged in animated discussion with the clan healer about the medical implications of successful human Enterran reproduction. As the festivities wound down, Eric found Taria on the balcony overlooking the compound, their son sleeping peacefully in her arms. "What are you thinking?" he asked, joining her at the railing. "About the future," she replied. "Our son will not be the last of his kind. Already 3 other human and Enterran pairings have formed since our union became known." Eric nodded. "The beginning of something new." "Yes," Taria agreed. "But it would not have happened without you, without your human adaptability and courage." She turned to face him fully. "When I came to your settlement that day, I sought only a practical solution to a political problem. I found instead a new path forward for our entire world." Eric smiled, remembering how commanding she had looked, how absurd her proposition had seemed. "I need a husband and you need strong offspring," he quoted, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "We've come a long way from that day," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Yes," she agreed, leaning into him despite her greater height. "But the journey has only begun." As they stood together under the alien stars, their son nestled safely between them, Eric knew she was right. What had started as a transaction had become a transformation, not just for them, but for 2 species who might never have discovered how perfectly they could complement each other. And it had all begun with a proposition as direct and uncompromising as the remarkable woman who had made it.